Broads Media.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Let's talk about what happened in Madison Square Garden. The Flyers look damn good, and it pisses me off that they look damn good because I know that they can look damn good, and if you can look damn good against the Rangers, who are very solid and strong, then why do you wet the bed when you see Columbus, when you see Montreal? You just went on the road, played in a very hostile environment against a team that is at the tippy top, and you look magnificent. Is it as simple as this, though? There's no pressure on you anymore. You're holding the sticks too tightly because, well, you're in control. You have all the power. If you hold up your end of the bargain, you're in the playoffs. And understanding that, they couldn't play their game. Now, nobody believes in them. The national media is talking about the biggest crumble of the season being in Philly. So what do you have to lose? Just go up there, go up 95, work hard, and see what happens. But there's no pressure on you. Nobody believed that you were going to look that strong and that good against the Rangers. So whatever. What do you have to lose? And that mentality allowed for them to calm down. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out why it was so beautiful and why the brand was so awesome when it's essentially over. Now, it's not over, but it's essentially over. We'll see what happens. Now you're scoreboard watching. You have to finish your job, by the way. You still have to do stuff for this to even matter. But while you watch the Penguins and while you watch the Red Wings and while you watch the Capitals, still got to do your job. But maybe. I don't know. Look, there were some fun moments. Travis Konecny buying time, and he finds Cam York, who snipes Jonathan Quick. That was electric. Watching Travis Konecny with the stick lift in his defensive zone throw the puck up the wall on the right side of the ice. Paling also buys time and then finds Travis Konecny in the slot area wide open when he buries with about 46 seconds or so left in the second period to go up 2 goals. That was great. Noah Cates, that was great. Bobby Brink, that was great. And Paling going to the net, driving the defenseman with him. The puck deflects a little bit. Okay, create good bounces. Create puck luck. You going to the right areas of the ice allowed Bobby Brink to try and thread the needle. Puck goes into the net. That's all good stuff. I thought Erson had some big saves. I mean, the one goal that happened was on a 5-on-3. So, okay, I mean, that stuff's going to go down unless you're the Flyers power play, of course. I mean, because they stink. They stink, but every other team knows how to work a 5-on-3. I thought Erson, when the game was 1-0, had a beautiful save on Trocheck in the middle of the slot there, left without anybody even close to him, and he came up big with the save. I thought the Flyers at times, especially in the first period, did a good job of forcing not very competitive shots. There wasn't a lot of traffic in front of the net. The Rangers would take shots from outside the perimeter. Erson had pretty much a wide open C to see the shot, to make a glove save. Wasn't dangerous, so good for them. And I just don't know what to do with this because, well, I watched the last 8 games. I watched you fail and collapse in front of my eyes. This should be more exciting. I'm not really going to give them a ton of credit for not rolling over and dying. And I know Torts totally changed his demeanor. He totally changed his voice. And he's nowhere even close to as intense as he was trying to maybe push this team. He realized that it wasn't going to work. They did not respond the way he wanted to. So he sort of slid into a different role, if you will. And now he's like, hey, let's make this something. Let's just try and crawl back into a what if. Let's just try and create as much noise as humanly possible, even though we are in a horrendous position. And the Flyers seem to sort of grab onto that. But am I really going to give them a standing ovation for it? Am I supposed to go, woohoo, congratulations? It's better than the alternative. That I will agree with. It's better than seeing them lose 9-1, okay? Because there's a pulse. They're still willing. They should still be willing. Like, do I give them a round of applause for them to be willing to play hockey after they had the horrible 8 games that they had in a row? No, right? Like, no. I shouldn't be throwing them a damn parade for it. But it is better than the alternative. I'd rather see this than see them go down just as ugly as they did against Montreal. And watch the game slip away from them where they just don't even feel like getting into the corners anymore. They don't give a damn about working hard in the D zone. TK is a leader, right? And Konechny's out here busting his ass in the D zone, stripping guys of the puck, and then heading out in transition the other way to score a beauty. I don't care if we're not making the playoffs. We're going to go out with us pouring our hearts on the ice. And that does mean something because, well, we were wondering, does John Tortorella still have a grasp on the guys? Do they still respect Tortorella? Now, I thought that was maybe premature because for 75 games of the season they did. And if you think just because Couturier got sat for a couple nights, then automatically everybody writes off the head coach, that's not enough of Tortorella doing the wrong things for them to automatically go, I hate him. I hate him. Like, it's just not how it goes. But this is interesting because I watched Cutter Gauthier last night in the Frozen Four, and I was glued to Denver in overtime against Boston University. I was really hoping for a BCBU national championship. That would have been crazy. But, of course, Boston College steamrolls Michigan, and Cutter Gauthier has a beautiful goal, 4-on-4, strips the puck at the blue line in his own D zone, goes on a breakaway, has a burst of speed, and a quick wrister beats the goalie 5-hole, and that pretty much was enough separation. This kid's just going to be a flat-out stud. I mean, he scores 1 billion goals in NCAA this year. The kid is a stud, and it eats me alive. So everyone's mad at me that I keep bringing up his highlights on Twitter and whatnot. It's like an ex-girlfriend. You got to move on. And I got you. I can't. I'm sorry, I can't. And somebody responded. Sam Kaplan said, Broads, if the Flyers had parted ways with Tortorella following the upper management change, do you think Cutter Gauthier would have signed here? And I woke up to that response and I said, it's an interesting question. I feel he would be here, but I definitely don't expect or want the front office to decide their head coach based on what a prospect wants, right? And I stand by that. Now, keep in mind, there were also some issues with the front office. It wasn't just Tortorella, although I do think that it played a pretty heavy role no matter what he says publicly. He said he was looking at the Flyers over the last 1 or 2 years, and he doesn't think that they're going to put him in the best position to thrive in the NHL. But the weird part is the Ducks are. I mean, seriously, I'm looking at the Anaheim Ducks as the Boston Bruins or, you know, like an organization that just has so much behind them and so much support that, they do everything right. The Anaheim Ducks, please. So it's all bullshit. But anyway, Elliot Shore Park says, I would have fired Torts if it meant keeping Cutter Gauthier. And I've sat there at the studios and talking to ESP pretty recently, actually, about some of the Flyer stuff. And no, I mean, he does believe this. And it's interesting, right? So I said, okay, let me get this straight. If Jalen Carter said, Howie, thank you so much for the phone call on draft day, but I'm not showing up unless you fire Nick Sirianni, do you consider it? Because this isn't some primed pro who has 10 years of experience in the league with the letter on his chest saying, yo, listen, I've been around the block. I've won a Stanley Cup. I've seen success. I know what it takes to lead a locker room, and this guy doesn't have it. If that's the case, I still don't know if I'm fully doing it, but I'm willing to have the respect of the guy to listen out back. All right. Plus, it's also Torch who has won a Stanley Cup and has had plenty of success in this league where that speaks for itself. But if you are a veteran guy who's played a lot of NHL games, maybe I talk about it, but not someone who hasn't even given one stride on the ice in real pro hockey yet. But anyway, ESP responds with, no, I would not fire Nick in that circumstance, but Nick is better of a head coach than Torts is right now. I don't know if I agree with that. I'm not high on Nick Sirianni. I think Torts is what he is, right? He's someone who his voice does run dry pretty quickly, but he does seem to have guys bust their ass and play hard for whenever his message does work. I think Torts is better than Sirianni, but I digress. That's not really the moral of the story here. He continues. The better comparison for Cutter is Jalen. If Jalen said he wanted Nick gone, then you'd have to at least consider it. With the Flyers, there is no question that Cutter is more important than Torts. Now, I actually agree with him on that last point. There is no doubt in my mind. It's not even debatable. Cutter Gauthier, long-term, when he was part of the Flyers organization, is 50,000 times more important than John Tortorella. So if that's the case, no matter how you get to the conclusion, if you're looking for the result that keeps Cutter here, do you at least have to consider it? And I think it's a fair question, but where I push back is a quarterback of a football team is not the same as Cutter, even though we do have high expectations for the kid. A quarterback is just different. And also, if Jalen Hurts is coming off of being a second-round draft pick with 0 starts in the NFL, and he goes to Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman and goes, thank you so much for drafting me, but I got to be honest with you, Nick Sirianni blows, and the only way that I'm willing to stay with the Eagles, even though you drafted him second overall, at the time you had Carson Wentz, big money, and all that stuff. So, like I said, it's not exactly apples to apples, but it is fascinating to sort of look at it from that light. And I know I'm somewhat getting sidetracked, and maybe some of you are a little over the Cutter Gauthier thing, but I'm just going to make this very clear. I'm never going to be over the Cutter Gauthier thing. I will be pretty much following his entire career and flirting that in, filtering that into any Flyers conversation that I have for the rest of my life, because I believe that this kid is great. So good. So good. And I don't think the Flyers necessarily handled this the wrong way. If you're trying to reset the culture and really have respect for the Flyers logo and get this thing back on track, if you open up the door and let this kid run the asylum, I don't know if you're necessarily doing the right things. And even if that comes at a cost where Jamie Drysdale isn't even close to the player that Cutter Gauthier one day becomes, I think you're really opening up a can of worms to allow him. This isn't the NBA where LeBron can make claims that I want to go here, where James Harden and all these stars have the power. And maybe this is starting to bleed into the NHL. We've seen Toronto deal with some of the young superstars. Mitch Marner, guys are playing a certain way with the leverage and the agents to sort of get a fat contract wherever they are. And they're starting to push the buttons for sure. So maybe this is just the start of the trend, if you will. But keep in mind, it wasn't just Torts. There was front office stuff as well. And this is where the debate sort of ended, or the conversation sort of ended. I said, I do agree with you that Cutter Gauthier is more important than Torts long term. But something about a kid who's never stepped foot in the NHL deciding the direction of the franchise rubs me in such a wrong way. And that's sort of where we left it from there. And actually, as we're recording this pod, we're getting a lot of traction here. The Cutter stuff is fascinating. This is from Ralph. I read all of his quotes about the organization. He sidestepped the question and never said a specific reason. So who really knows whether it was money, whether it was Torts, whether it was management? Well, it wouldn't have been money. It might have been him going back to college instead of playing in the AHL, or he thought that he could just step in and be on the NHL roster. I mean, I actually remember speaking to a few people that are very close to the situation, and they were saying that he wanted a spot. He didn't want to earn a spot. He didn't want to have to work hard. And Torts and Briere go, dude, are you delusional? Like, who do you think you are, right? I mean, you're great. Just go in there and do your job. If you show up and you play hard and you be Cutter Gauthier, then everything will fall into place. So don't worry about being handed a spot, this and that. You're great. You are centered around changing the franchise. This fan base is anticipating you more than they've ever anticipated anyone ever. Not really, but you get my point that it's up there. And even someone as great as Matvei Michkov, the fact that, no disrespect to someone who has to play in the KHL and someone with a Russian background and all, you're an American kid. You played for the National Development Program. You played at Boston College, and casuals understand college athletics more than someone playing in a different country. So the connection to you will be very high. Don't worry about all that other stuff, man. Just be Cutter Gauthier and it'll fall into place. But he's playing hardball. I don't know. It's nuts. It's nuts. But I thought it was fascinating to kind of open up that little side topic with Cutter Gauthier. It's not going to go anywhere, so just know that. If you're bothered by it, I apologize. Here's some text messages on the Anytime Hotline. Some of these were from Tuesday, if I'm looking at the date that they came in. And keep in mind, their last game was what? Tuesday night they played the Habs. So this is prior to the Rangers outcome. Fans not happy, though. Take a good look, Flyers fans. These games mean something, and not one player is stepping up. They're not one or two players away, and I don't want to hear excuses from Briere or Jones. These guys don't have what it takes to win, and the core guys from the Giroux years need to go. Who's that? Couturier? Lawton? Is Travis Konechny in that mix? I want Lawton gone. I wanted Lawton gone a few years ago, but they butchered that. I like Cam York. Is Sanheim part of the Claude Giroux years? Technically, he is, yes. But it seems to me you're probably addressing Sean Couturier and Lawton. Look, if you could move Couturier, I'd be open to it. I think Couturier's good. I do. I think he's good. I think he's a good player who's dealing with a lot physically, coming back from a lot of stuff. I think he's good, but first off, you give him the C, and I have heard that was more of a Jonesy and Briere thing, not so much a Tortorella thing, so I doubt the front office is going to go, let's move the guy that we just slapped the C on his chest. And the reason they wanted to do that was they wanted to find a connection between the fan base and the team. They were looking for someone that they could model that connection with and almost be the middleman, and they thought Coots could be that, and I got no problem with it. I don't need to strip guys from here. I really don't. I know Torts is stressing that message that we have to learn about who can play, who can't play. I think they all can play. They may have failed in that particular moment in those 8 games, but that doesn't mean that I don't think that Joel Farabee's a good player. Like, Joel Farabee might have been disappointing at times, but do I think Joel Farabee's ceiling is still strong? Absolutely. I'm not willing to get rid of anyone because of these 8 games. There's no one that I see on this team that goes, okay, enough's enough. These 8 games told me you stink. I wanted Lawton gone 2 years ago. So these 8 games didn't tell me I wanted Lawton gone. I wanted Lawton gone years ago. The whole signing Sealer thing, I don't think you do that. You should have maximized your return at the deadline. They let the playoffs and the position they were in hold them back from certain decisions, and now they're paying. Now they're letting karma smack them in the face. But I don't think guys need to go. I'm underwhelmed. You're right that guys didn't step up. You're right. But you could look at it one or two ways. That means these guys are frauds forever, or that means that they need to learn from this. Because Alex Ovechkin was not winning playoff series against Pittsburgh for how long? And at that particular time, you could say, well, Alex Ovechkin's a loser. Alex Ovechkin will never succeed. Alex Ovechkin will never win a cup. Or all those losses tell the story until eventually they beat the Penguins in a 7-game series, and then they go on and he's getting drunk and shit-faced in the fountains with a Stanley Cup, sleeping next to it every single night taking pictures. So just because you fail, it doesn't mean you always fail. I can say I'm disappointed they failed, but when a group of young kids like this mixed with some veterans don't get the job done, I don't necessarily draw conclusions that they will never get the job done. And if you claim that, it's harder to do than not do. It's not an excuse, but I'm saying it's one of those where you say, you'll never win with Embiid. Well, you have about a 90% chance of being right. There's a 10% chance that he can do it. And that's not to say he's a bad player, and a 10% chance means that Joel Embiid's not good. That's how hard it is to win a championship. We would love to have Jason Tatum on the Sixers, will we not? Jason Tatum hasn't won a championship yet. Now, they've gotten farther than the Sixers, but he hasn't won the hardware yet. Maybe this is the year, but it's hard to do it. So if you say this group will never do it, Owen Tippett, Morgan Frost, they'll never do You probably have a high percentage of being right because it's that difficult to do. But it doesn't mean I give up on the players when they fail. You have to sort of put expectations on these kids that they can grow from. Do I think Owen Tippett will continue to improve? Yes. That's really the question to me. Instead of, do I think they'll ever, it's more of, do I think that these players on the current roster will continue a trajectory of an upwards line or an upwards trajectory? Like, will they continue to improve from this point moving forward? That's more the question, and I think the answer is yes. I'm a Flyers fan from Georgia. I went through the Thrashers 11 years, then relocation happened, and then I became a Flyers fan in 2012. Through all of that, I have never had the hope drained from me more than what is happening right now. All the right things done this year to end this way, ... I know. That's what sucks the most, is sometimes you laugh at the Mets for always being the Mets, and they always find horrible ways to lose. Well, what's going on here with my banner and my border on my YouTube screen? You see it jumping? What's happening here? All right, I think I fixed it. So, the Mets always Mets. They can win 100 games, then have a home playoff series in the wild card round and get their heart broken out of their chest just when you think maybe they're turning the corner. Of course they're not turning the corner. They're a disaster. They're the New York Mets. Well, enter the Flyers into the mix, because that's essentially what we have here. Just when you thought things were trending in the right direction, you get the rug pulled right from underneath of you. Now, here's reality of it. 3 months from now, I'll have a positive spin on this more than I do right now. I'm not throwing away all of the positives, but reality is you got to let this thing sting. You got to let this thing eat you alive. It should hurt. It should be painful, and you should expect them to do better than what they did against Columbus and Montreal and those teams, because as they showed in Madison Square Garden, they're capable of way more. So they failed. They failed, and you have to let them know that it's not okay. You have to hold them accountable, and it's unacceptable. It's not okay what you did. So pour that emotions out right now. Let that be sort of the message to the team as a fan base right now. And then in about 2 or 3 months, as we get ready for the draft and we start to figure out the next wave of Flyers hockey conversation, then we can sort of assess and dissect the good things, the bad things, and all of that. But as for right now, it's okay to be angry, and it's okay to be mad, and it's okay to say that it wasn't right what they did. No matter if they're young, no matter if it's a first step of a rebuild, I'm not there right now. I'm in anger mode, and you should be angry, because what they did was disgusting. And now we're playing watch the standings. It would be funny if after all this, they still somehow get in, but they're asking for a lot. You need a lot. And I hate looking at Twitter and seeing some of the guys who cover the team break it down like, all right, this is what you need from Detroit. This is what you need from Washington. The Flyers have to do that. It's like, okay, I got 75 different possibilities in my head. Let's see what the Flyers do, and from there I'll react after I see how the rest of the scoreboard falls on that given day, because my brain doesn't work like that. I'll be stuck. I'll be stuck and frustrated trying to figure out the equation. All right, so with that, those are sort of my thoughts. I appreciate the love. I appreciate the support. We'll keep an eye on this. Talk to you guys on the next one.